Welcome to another episode of Customer Success Talks Real Challenges, Experts Advice, the podcast dedicated to helping those transitioning into customer success and early career customer success managers. I'm your host, Byron Peruño, passionate about customer success, and just like you, I'm still learning about this amazing world of customer success. Today is the first episode of a series of two episodes about communities, customer success communities. This episode will be focusing on what is to build a community, but what is to be a community founder? What are the challenges? And now here you can easily you can get inspired into one day waking up and say, I want to create my own community. Or maybe after you hear the challenges, you will say, no, I will participate in one and we will be all successful. So let's see. I would love to hear your outcomes of today's episode. And for that, we have three amazing founders. And let's go ahead and start today's episode. Let's see. Parul, let's start with you. I would love to for you to tell who are you, your background, and also your community. Why did you started your customer success community?
Absolutely. Nice to meet you formally in this setting, and so glad to be here representing South Asian Success. A little bit about me: I'm a CS fanatic, I CS enthusiast. I don't know the right word. I fell in love with customer success about 10 years ago when I started my first customer success team, and since then just have found so much wonderful thought leadership in the space. Some of the people in the room are some of those thought leaders, and what kind of drives me every day is, finding ways for people to not only feel that they are being seen and heard, but finding ways to empower them. So, why South Asian Success began in 2023, I was at a conference actually, and looking around the room, there are about 100 people there, three people of South Asian heritage in that room. And that's not uncommon in here in the US, right? And so I started to say, like, let's talk to people, let's find these people because I know that they're out there, right? And so what we've done is built a global community, which has been really fantastic. I mean, for me as a founder, I've talked to and met so many new people this year, but also just pulling people together on a common vision.
That's amazing. You said I felt in love with CS 10 years ago. That happened to me 2 years ago, and you're still going. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you find something that is truly like um, that like enables you to do passion driven work, that for me has been customer success, right? Where every day I'm like, these are problems I want to solve, these are solutions I want to build. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing, Parul. Mohammed, happy to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. Let everyone know who are you, your background, and the reason why you started Customer Success Middle East.
All right, thank you, Baron. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Um, so I'm Mohammed Alqaq. I'm based in Jordan. Been in a customer-facing role for almost the last 20 years. I've done customer success before the word or the title exists. I've been like lucky to be part of a task force team to create customer success methodology for an international practice long time ago, and that what it's like it was like my baby, and since then I'm in love with customer success. I'm very passionate about customer success, and for me anything I do if it is not challenging, it's not interesting. And you know community is very challenging, and that's why it's very interesting, and that's why it keeps me up in the night. People, they know that sometimes I'm joining Jan calls at 2 a.m. my time, uh, and because of Jan and because of the knowledge you can gain from her office hour every Tuesday, or it's Wednesday morning my time. So I started the customer success Middle East. It's almost 3 years ago, and the reason behind that is to spread the knowledge, to share the knowledge I have, to bring people from all over to the local community or to the local region, to get people connected, to grow the experience, and to have something in the region that to let people be seen that they are experts and they know what they are doing, and to grow the practice within the customers, the Middle East. One of the other reasons I have to start the community is, I felt that there is a gap between what we are doing in the Middle East and what other regions are doing, and I wanted to bring or to connect those dots together so we can grow better in the region.
You're basically a bridge. What you're doing, you're connecting the Middle East with all other regions in the world. That's amazing, Mohammed. I'm really curious to hear the challenges of building a community in the Middle East. But what I hear is a lot of passion. What I hear is about getting people connected and growing. And to do that is to do it together as a whole.
All right, one of the many challenges we have is attracting and retaining members, attract leaders from other regions to be part of our community, or to support our community, or to join us in a call or in a webinar, or sometimes those are the challenges. Those are the small challenges we have. Other challenges, we all have our day job, and then community is another full-time job. And if you don't have a consistency, and you have a routine and a plan to keep things going, people will start to like go off track. So this is one of the challenge I have, that literally sometimes I do like 15-16 hours a day of work just to keep the community running. Attract companies to be part of our community, so we grow and we expand our community. Attracting members so you grow the community, so companies can join and can be part of your community. Those are like two formulas, or two sides of one formula, that you have to keep jumping from one side to another just to maintain that size of the community, and to expand it, or to grow it.
I'm curious for people who are hearing this, if they now feel like they want to build their own community. That's the question I have, because there's a lot going on behind building one. Thank you, Mohammed, for that. And I know it's 9:23 for you over there, so thank you again for your time. John, please tell everyone who is John, your background, and also about CX Exchange.
Absolutely. Yes, so my name's Jan Young, and I have been involved in tech since the .com days. So I generally do not mention my age, but I've done, across all different kinds of roles, project and product management and marketing, sales, account management, professional services, customer success. And where I've really focused my practice is on customer success, because that's where I'm most passionate, because I feel like that's where it's most complex. Because once you get the customer, how do you actually get them to engage, in the hard work of change management, which is really what that is, starting from onboarding to adoption and all of those things. And that's something that folks don't think about too much. And yet that is at the core of what you're doing and need to do successfully in order for them to achieve what they're hoping to gain from using the product, and sort of that initial vision of why they purchased. And then that's how you earn the right to sell to them a renewal or expansion. And it's so complex. And I think that there's so many opportunities, especially for CS leaders and CSMs who sit at that intersection between the customer and the company, and how much you understand business, and how much you understand, psychology and financials, and everything. Like, all of it comes together just right there at the pinnacle where we sit. And another thing I really fell in love with back during the pandemic, I was always involved in communities. I can't help it. I tend to start a community if you say boo, but it's kind of sad. Exactly, like boom, that's 4 more communities. But, but so I do, but at the same time, I hadn't discovered the customer success community until really the pandemic, and that's when I truly fell in love with the customer success community, and, so many smart and empathetic and just giving people who are, also think, just so strategically, and I mean, that's just everything I love all there wrapped up in one. So it becomes addictive, frankly. And I am certainly addicted. But no, I started CX Exchange purely by accident. I was in an interim VP role at a fintech startup, and I was basically hiring my VP replacement, a bunch of CSMs, a manager of support, onboarding. And so I put out a note on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'm hiring, for all these roles." And about 80 people all wanted to have half-hour meetings with me. That wasn't going to happen. That would have taken a full week just on its own. So I set up an office hour, which is why then originally it was just called office hours. And then people were like, "What is this office hour that's on my calendar?" Because basically I had like three, we just kept meeting because not all 80 people were going to get hired. And we had all different, a mix. This is why there's such a mix of people in this community, because there was a mix of people on the call, and they all had something to contribute. They all had questions, but even when they were, when I was starting to answer, there was somebody else who would be like, "Oh, and another thing, and another thing." And that's why I really feel so strongly that we all have questions and we all have ways to contribute, no matter where we are, in our careers. And that was the genesis of these at the beginning, very unstructured calls. When we get to March of 2025, it'll be 3 years that we've been around. So we kept meeting, and you can actually find all this information on our website. Now we have a website, which is kind of crazy. So we just kept meeting. And then there was somebody one time who said, "No, I really need to share a couple of slides. You won't really get it unless I have a couple of slides." I'm like, "No, but this is discussion." Like, "No, we need to anchor on like what this is." So then I allowed a few slides, but it was all supposed to be discussion. But then we kept getting bigger and bigger groups. And I remember talking to someone once afterwards. I was like, "You have so much to say about this topic. Why didn't you raise your hand and say something?" She's like, "I don't know, it's a bigger group. I just didn't feel comfortable." So that's when I started doing the breakout groups. So we have breakout discussions as part of it. And then someone else wanted to add in the slides. So then we have slides. So now we have actually a structure for it. Someone else said, "We really need a Slack group because we aren't, I can't find everybody afterwards on LinkedIn." So that's how we started the Slack community. Somebody said, "We should have onboarding because now there's so many things to do." So now we have a group that does onboarding. We have people who are doing something with the videos. We have a YouTube page. We have like 50 volunteers now. It's all volunteer led. And people get to know each other by working together as well. It's a very active, it's not like there's some CS communities that are more like if you go to them, you might find a job or you might ask a question and stop in on the Slack community. This is much more of a come and contribute however much you want to, but the more you put in, the more you get out. That's kind of what CX Exchange has become. And now because people need more courses and more structure to learning, now I'm creating Step Up Exchange where I'm building courses. So it's like an offshoot, and that'll be like more of a paid, community that's just around cohort and project-based learning. But that's like an offshoot and associated with CX Exchange.
I think after what we're going to talk today, I will be a little bit of scared of building one, but I think that it's also exciting, and there are a lot of things that one can develop as the founder of building a community. So, but talking about this, it's like let's jump into the challenges now. Let's jump into those challenges that community founders have, and this will be an open mic. Parul, we will start with you. I will just throw you in front of the bus. But for you, what has been the biggest challenge of building a customer success community? because I remember, and it's different, when I started the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. But I didn't knew what was going to come with it.
I think, Mohammed, you said there are many challenges. I also agree there are many challenges, but probably the largest one that I've encountered is, as I think you mentioned this too, Byron, is like the fight for time, right? The virtual space has become very inundated. And I will say this myself, I don't attend as many things as I hope to. I even had a school event the other day and I tried to attend that and I forgot because it was at 7 p.m. and I was with my kids. But, I have every good intention and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I think when you're in the virtual space, like there is a bit of a fight for people's time and people have only so much time to give. So that's been one area for me that's felt a little bit challenging. And then to be honest, like the secondary areas, I think a lot of communities are global that you've probably talked to. There's something unique about the way that people work and the way that people choose to engage in different places. And I think that's also been interesting to note is like, you have to make sure we're hitting people's time zones, but also are we meeting people how they want to be met? So we're still trying to figure out the secret sauce, to be honest. And I think that we're making some pivots actually in the coming year because of that. Because what I wanted to do and what I think we did successfully in year one was me having a lot of great conversations, but I want to make sure that other people are in on these conversations too. So we're really trying to broaden out, and Jan knows this because she's going to be on one of our webinars next year. But I had reached out to Jan this year because we did the Volley event and we really wanted to encourage non-community members to join that, but we had nobody. It was all people from the community because I think there still is like this little gap of understanding that just because a community is focused on a particular area that you can't be a part of it. And that's maybe not exactly how we want to do things. And I think, Mohammed, you probably agree here. But so we are asking people like Jan to come in because what's going to happen is now folks that go to other events, like the many things that Jan, you're running, they now see like, oh, Jan's going to be here. I can be here too, right? Like it's building. Sorry, I'm going to talk long, but this came to my mind. We build these communities for ourselves, for community, for networking. There is definitely that aspect of it. And there are going to be things that you want to hold close. But what good is a community if we don't educate externally, right? So half of the messaging is really let us share a little bit about ourselves so that we can better work together. And that's kind of the twofold approach that we're trying to land on.
It's very challenging, but sometimes when you get the feedback from members and you know that you have impacted on the members' work and experience, you feel more excited and you start to think that, okay, I need to do more. And this is really what makes it interesting. It's very challenging, but it's very interesting. And maintaining the consistent engagement and delivering value to members of the community or to anybody within the community or people who just walk by the community is very challenging because that keeps you up in the night every day. So those are the challenges that really you think about them every day, how you want to make sure that you are maintaining that level of engagement with your members, you are providing a value to them, they are not wasting their time when they are joining your webinars or when you post something on the Slack channel of the community, you are not just wasting your time adding some content that it will bring no value. So one of the other challenges is trying to how can I say it, balancing the diverse member needs. It's because you have members from all levels, from different backgrounds, from different industries, and to balance that, ask Jan. She is the expert on that. This is very challenging, and that's. But it's, again, I always say it's challenging, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, and what I found too is because I didn't really intend to start this community, but it sort of evolved over time. Then I mean, in some ways it's exciting to be able to let it evolve, to see where it wants to go naturally. I think that it's helpful when you let your members, or contribute and make those decisions, but also it can then becomes like a multi-headed octopus with way more than even 8 arms. You know what I mean? And so part of what we're doing actually right now is sort of going through and looking at all of the different channels that we have, because we really just have too many channels. And so we're going to reorganize them, right? And streamline them a little bit so that then, because the energy that you have, whether it's online or whether it's in a webinar, and I never know how many people are going to show up from one week to the next or anything, right? You don't know. You can have however many people sign up, but even then you don't have as many people. And because discussion and that interaction is so key to what we do, then it really does matter how many people show up. But I don't have any control over it, so I'm not going to stress on it. But just in that minute before, I'm always like, is anyone going to show? And then it's always kind of great to see who does. But it's then trying to keep that engagement and really learning from it, like how to create that engagement in the Slack community. And then it's also how to, I mean, you never know how people are building those relationships with each other, because in our community, especially, I want them to meet each other and help each other. Because part of it too is I can't help every single person out there. And I would love to. I mean, I get dozens of people every day who literally want to meet with me, and I can't do it. I just don't have the time. And so I tell them about the community, because either they're going to be able to do something with me on a one-to-many, or they're going to be able to meet with others too. And then some of them I actually do meet, especially if they volunteer, then I'm more likely going to meet them. But now too, having 50 volunteers and having all these different communities and actually having a board, right? Like that is a lot more to organize and structure. And there's only so much you can let them just go off and do on their own. At some point, they want to check in and see if it's, in line. And you do want to make certain that they're all coordinating with each other and in line with each other too. So like it's a job, like it's a whole other thing. But I've really tried to keep CX Exchange, as a volunteer led, and keeping that separate, in terms of Step Up Exchange, actually, being more where like actually then I'm going to hire VAs and things like that to help me with that, right? But I just feel like the spirit of CX Exchange is for it to be free and volunteer led, and see how long it can last, because it can only last as long as the volunteers want to help it last, And at some point, if there's not volunteers, then I'm just going to be like, okay, I can't do this all by myself for sure, especially the way that it's developed, But yeah, it's not organized in a traditional sense, though,
Yeah, and no one teaches us or teach you how to build a community. We all learn as we do. But one of the challenges, as well as for what I hear, is letting go of the baby. As it's growing, you also have to delegate and letting go. But on the other side is the motivation of, should I continue doing the community? Motivation of questioning yourself. Have you all had this before? Like at some point saying, okay, no, I'm gonna give up everything. I will just let it go. Have you had this before?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by, I mean, I let go all the time as people are trying to set things up. I'm like, okay, if you want to set it up, you can, like, we'll add a Slack channel for you, however you want to do it. And then I just try to support them. Do you know what I mean? I say, "Hey, let me know how I can best support you." So in that sense, I let go all the time. But I don't know how long this community will last. Like in that respect, I think it depends upon what people bring to it. That's why I have the whole stone soup allegory on our website, because everyone has to contribute to it. And then you can create from it. If everyone puts in a turnip, an onion, a carrot, I'm vegan, but let's say like there's beef in it or chicken or something. There could be, for many stews, have that, but I just don't eat it. But anyway, but like, so everyone throws something in, and then you have this nourishing stew. Whereas before, I had a turnip or you had an onion, right? So we all contribute something to it.
But at the beginning, basically, like at the beginning, like starting that.
From the very first meeting, I wasn't the only one speaking. I wasn't the only one with ideas. And I definitely wasn't the one with questions. Like, if no one had questions, there was nothing for me to say. So from the very beginning, it was all the other contributions that made it an interesting conversation. So I've always wanted to elevate others, but at the same time, like, if at some point there's just not going to be volunteers, then okay, then I guess we don't have the energy to keep this going. And so then I'll, that would probably break my heart. But at the same time, it's like, if there weren't volunteers for it, or if people weren't showing up. But that's also why we're going to restructure things in this new year, because rather than having all the weekly success hours, we're also going to do like monthly voice vanguards. We have monthly book clubs. We have, all these other things going on. So we have to, now approach it with less is more, because you can't go to everything. And if you can't go to everything, then there's too much.
Can I just chime in? Because what you just said, I think, is really important, is like less is more. I think in the virtual world, that is like happening in general. Like for us, we've kind of, I haven't shared yet the plans for the next year, but that's one of the things that we are doing, is streamlining down, because what I think what happens is too, there's like, now, obviously, if your topics are robust and you have a good number of people, it's great, no matter, how often you want to do it. But I think there's also a bit of like, dilution sometimes if you have too much of the same thing, right? So, giving it a little pause, giving it a break so that it can be exciting again, can also help. So, I mean, I think we're making some strategic changes. But Jan, I loved your soup analogy, because I think, or stew, I should say stew, because that's more accurate. Because I think that's truly the beauty of the community, right? Like, having somebody lead it and having webinars and whatever, like, that's great. That's not going to get you very far. It's what comes out of that. It's the connections. And like, I know the first chai chat that we did last year, there was a job discussion that occurred. And I know that person now has gotten a job based on a connection that they made that they didn't have before. And I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. Those little things that make you really feel like it's, if we can provide the spaces for people to come and talk and feel comfortable to talk about a book and in a safe space, or come and talk about whatever it is in a safe space, that is, you're really lending to that stew, that richness.
Yeah, I want to add something, just about the let things go. You mentioned, Baron. Being in a community, you need to be always creative, and sometimes you start a project within the community, and then after a while, you feel that this does not bring that value you are looking for, or people would expect from you. So you need to be creative and to adapt and change things, and not to feel sorry for something you have done for couple of months, for a year, for two, and then you change it. Restructuring, changing, be more creative. This is what keeps you moving. I've done the Monday interview for 3 years, but a few weeks ago I just decided that okay, enough is enough. 3 years, I've had like more than 100 and something leaders interviewed. I want to change that pattern, and instead of bring one leader in a written interview, I want to bring more leaders in a webinar. And instead of spending 15-20 minutes reading, you can just listen to it while you are driving, or while you are on the way back home from work. And again, for the reason behind that is also, people are crazy fast these time. People are getting more crazy about time, and they want everything quickly. So probably podcast or webinar is more convenient for people to watch and listen. So this is one of the things that I learned while I'm building the community, is You need to be creative. You need to adapt things. You need to let things go, because that's what keeps you moving on.
This is amazing. It's amazing. And I'm also wondering about the challenge of when it comes to budget as well. Is that actually a big I can see it in your all faces, but let me finish. Wait. Because something that I love about customer success is indeed the community. Like it's also what we do on our day to days, but it's also the community, how there's amazing thought leaders and new ones growing as well. And we are all passionate about sharing and like reaching out to someone and participate on this podcast, participate on this event. But what is it the budgeting side, the sustainability of that commercial side as well? Because we communities, I see, is also a way for us to share, but I think that we also have to focus on the other side.
When you said budget, and I was on mute, so you didn't hear me laugh, but I was laughing because the reason why CX Exchange says it's sponsored by Jan Young CX is because I'm just footing the bill for it. Now, we did get our first sponsor this year, which is really quite exciting, and that was RevSetter, who was sponsoring our industry series, where we took a look at what CS looks like in different industries. They got excited about that idea as well. And so then that was our first sponsor. And that actually helped me get a few more tools to use as we're, expanding how many volunteers we had. And the number of volunteers we had was just by accident. In case if you guys are thinking of this, if you put a button on your website that says volunteers and you link it to a Google form and you suggest different things they might volunteer for, people will fill out that form. So exciting. And that's how we started getting volunteers. And so anyway, might want to just do that. But in terms of budget, like it's just shoestring. It's just like, we're really just, I'm on a free version of Slack for a reason.
I wanted to talk about that because I think, Jan, you mentioned something earlier too, where you said, this is going to be free and hopefully forever. And I think that's like the essence of community is like, you want it to be a certain thing. And there are two options, it's a paid community or it's a free community. If you choose that route to be a free community, there are going to be business expenses. There is overhead, right? Like just even like running a Zoom or whatever. And so I do think it is beneficial if you can gain some sponsorship. What I would say is the biggest need, I think, is when you do in-person events. Those events could really be like, I'm a part of CUSP, which is the Chicago Customer Success Community. And without sponsorship, we would have really found it difficult to do some of the in-person events that we were able to do this year. And there are benefits to the sponsors. So like, I think we try to make it as a much of a two-way street as possible. But as people listening to this, like for communities also, that does like everything, Jan, that you're doing from Jan Young CX, you're paying, essentially as a sponsor, you're also paying out of your pocket. So, while you can choose all the free tools in the world, there's just some things that are free that you can't, you just are not going to be able to do for free. So, I think like there is a need for sponsorship. I don't think I have like this urgency today, like, oh my God, I need a sponsor. But as you grow and as you scale and as you say, maybe we want to do more chapter events or Mohammed's traveling all over, the place, that's when you really, I think can start to benefit from sponsorship. And I also love that you said writing down for volunteers, but I also noticed last year, I saw like Success in Black did a call for sponsors on LinkedIn. And I'm like, these are things that you have to just make it a part of the conversation, right? Otherwise, nobody's going to just give you money. You got to do your biz dev.
And in-person events, I always have sponsors because can't do it otherwise. Yeah.
Well, because they're expensive. Like now, and I don't know about you guys, even in like Chicago, the price of everything doubled. Like, every event that we could do in, $500 in the past, like $1,000. So my point being, you have to be realistic if you want to try to do a real event.
Yeah, and the bigger you grow, the more you need to spend, and this is one of the challenges. I'm sponsoring everything from my pockets, which that does not make my wife happy, but I'm but Even in-person event last year, I've sponsored everything on my own, or sponsored myself. We got some support from here and there, but it's not funding. It's just a support, which is appreciated. But maintaining and growing this community, there are a lot of tools that we are using to keep community running, and all those subscriptions are things we are sponsoring ourselves. And it's like the egg and chicken thing or game. It's you need to grow the community to bring sponsors, or you need to bring sponsors to grow the community. So it's the other way around. And think think about it. We grow and we have a lot of expenses, but still for sponsors, you are still small. You are not big enough to be seen, to be sponsored. This is the situation. It's a challenging situation, but who knows?
Yeah, you really have to think about what's in it for the sponsor. And that's part of why there's two reasons why now we have a sign up form for the Slack community. One is we need to know where people are based in case we want to do an event near them. The other is sponsors want to know, like, where are your community members based. That's part for whatever reason that's important to them. So that's and it's good to know also, like, even if you're scheduling, whether it's a virtual event or an in-person event, you need to know what time zones your members are as well. So, like, for all those kinds of reasons, now I have all this, these things that I'm asking people when they're signing up, because you got to know who your members are if you're really going to serve them too. But it's a form. It's a long form.
I think that at some point, budget it is definitely key. Like if we want to bring more events, if we want to bring better quality of something, and if we want to stop putting our money as well, it's budget sponsorship is definitely key. But I also know that having sponsors that also come with other challenges. Fortunately, there is no more time to continue today's episode. The idea of today's episode was to not solve the challenges, but express what are those challenges so you know what it means to build a community. Either if you want to build one or you just want to participate in one and engage and be a volunteer, leverage your learning. Like it's a good, because LinkedIn, at least for me, it's intimidating, and it could be for a lot of people. So why not starting small in a community? Let's go. Let's make a community grow. Let's learn from that, and then let's continue building customer success as we know and even improving it. Mohammed, Jan, Parul, thank you so much for your time. It has been a pleasure having you all in one same place. And there's another episode that is coming as well. Isn't that amazing? Where we will be focusing on the benefits of being a member of a community, how you can participate, the difference between online and in-person events, which being in an in-person event, there are some challenges as well. And yeah, it could be energy draining, but you can learn a lot. But before we close today's episode, I'm going to ask you the question that I have been asking for a while, because the idea of the podcast is to bring experts on the industry, also to hear how they resolve challenges and the challenges they have had, aiming for people transitioning into customer success and early career customer success managers. Wow, that was long. But what I want to ask is, can you tell us a mistake that you have done and what have you learned from it when building a community?
I can start with my mistake. When I started, I wanted to start big. And after a few months, I realized that, I've just wasted a couple of months. I have to go back down and sit down and think about it the way that I wanted to gradually grow it. And then I structured everything from scratch and I started again. So if you want to start small and put a plan to grow. Don't think about starting big and you have everything, because you cannot. especially if you start on your own. It's very difficult, and that was my mistake when I started.
I was just I mean, we have had a year of tenure, so I have probably many more mistakes to make. But I think one thing was not setting the right expectations for a speaker at one of our early events. And I think what it did is it turned the planned conversation a little different. So now I'm working on, with anybody coming on, like setting as much expectations as I can. I mean, sometimes you never know in a conversation how it's going to go, but trying to be as upfront about what to expect, because I think that in that case, it kind of changes the tone of things. So lesson learned. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say this. I didn't think I was gonna become like a webinar host, so it's like a new job too, right? A new thing that you're also navigating and learning.
That's too funny. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I couldn't have foreseen that. Well, I didn't even know I was starting a community, frankly, but I couldn't have foreseen how much I would love it, right? If this could be my full-time job, like if I had just somehow thought to charge $5 or $10 a month for each member, and I could just do this, that's what I would do. I would absolutely, and I have definitely at times spent way more time on this free volunteer community than I could afford to. But it's something that I truly love doing. And I guess I wish that, I mean, in a way, I'm so glad to be able to keep it free, and that's what the character and kind of the genesis of it is. And so we'll keep it that way. But I guess, and then I'll supplement in ways that need to be built out differently with the Step Up Exchange. And that will be sort of a, like when there's courses and things like that, where you really have to put in time and effort and things like that. And I really want to build out the approach to it in a different way, because I've seen trying to impact change in organizations, and change is so hard that it's really guided me in how I want to do the coaching and building the project-based courses, and having the longevity of working with folks so that they can really have an impact on their organizations, right? So like that will be sort of an offshoot of it. And I guess it's just sort of allowing for the opportunity of the evolution, but at the same way, trying to figure out how I can make a living, in a sense, by doing all these things that I love, and having community at the core and at the crux and at the base of it all. Because for me, I can only work collaboratively and with community and by bringing in the contributions of others. That's what I've really learned. And I have such a strong vision about how to bring people in and how to be inclusive, that I don't think I can work another way. So anyway, I don't think I could have known that ahead of time, but that's what I'm trying to figure out now. So I don't know that it's a mistake exactly. I feel like every mistake leads to learnings and an evolution of how you do things. So, you just, you try not to be too reactive when something goes awry, and just be like, okay, what can we learn from it so we can build and grow? And yeah, and just try to accept things as they come. That's about as zen as I can get. You just can't stress on it too much. You just gotta go with the flow.
Well, that's after 3 years of doing this, Jan. I think that one learned that as well. And it's amazing to hear the mistakes, the learnings, the way that you all fucked up, literally. That's the word, literally. But okay, everyone, thank you. Thank you for your time, Mohammed, Jan, Parul. Again, I just love to pronounce your names. Everyone listening, seeing us on YouTube, listening us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and everywhere you can reach out to us. Thank you for always being here, supportive. If you reach to the end of this episode and you have learned about the challenges and you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. There's another episode coming as well. Remember, keep learning, keep growing, and let's keep improving the world of customer success. Until next time.